The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. The sisters of Lazarus sent a message to Jesus, "Lord, he whom you love is ill." But when Jesus heard this, he said, "This illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Accordingly, though Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, after having heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to the disciples, "Let us go to Judea." When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and she met him, while Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on that last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even though they die, will live, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one coming into the world." Jesus was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. And Jesus looked upward and said, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me." And when he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." And the dead man came out, his hands and his feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a shroud. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." Many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what Jesus did, believed in him. The Gospel of the Lord. Through the words of the Gospel, may our sins be wiped away.
We all have pictures taken of us at some point or other that we hope have not survived for posterity. And one of the pictures that was once taken of me was wrapped all up with bands of cloth like Lazarus. And the reason was I was working on my doctorate in Belgium on this passage, the account of the raising of Lazarus. And a crew of younger American seminarians who lived on the same corridor as I did decided they were going to sponsor I don't know, it was Mardi Gras or Halloween party, but anyway, they made all these bands of stuff and insisted I had to dress like Lazarus. And I did. And somebody took pictures. But anyway, hopefully they've gone. This account of the raising of Lazarus, like the other two accounts that were heard last week and the week before, are actually the shorter versions. So it tells you how major a story each one of these was. The encounter with the woman of Samaria at the well 2 weeks ago, the healing of the man born blind a week ago, and now the raising from the dead of Lazarus of Bethany. This is the greatest of all of the miracles or the signs performed by Jesus. Great is simply by virtue of the fact that it is raising somebody from the dead. And second, great is by how long that somebody had been dead. We have 3 different accounts of Jesus raising the dead. The first, the daughter of Jairus. We do not know her name, only her father's name. And when he first came to Jesus, she was sick, and he was afraid for her. And so Jesus went, but by the time he got there, she had died. And so they were greeted with the news, let the master go, she's already dead. But Jesus went in and took her by the hand and said, little girl, get up. And the very Aramaic words have been preserved in the gospel. And she got up, and he gave her over to her parents. The second account was of a young man, the son of the widow of Nain. We do not know his name or his mother's name, only that she was a widow, and where they came from, the town of Nain. He was being carried out for burial. Since the Jews were very careful to bury on the day of death before the sun went down, we can presume he's been dead a number of hours, but certainly no more than 24 hours. And Jesus was moved with pity at this widow whose only son was being carried out for burial. And he touched the boy, and the man got up, and he gave him over to his mother. But in this account, this is not the daughter of someone who comes to Jesus for help. It's not an anonymous young man whom Jesus encounters walking through the countryside. It is a very close friend, part of a little family who were welcoming to Jesus. As we read in St. Luke's Gospel, Martha and Mary, and we all know that story. And Martha, you worry about too many things. She's trying to get things ready. While Mary is listening at the feet of Jesus for his teaching. And Lazarus, now their brother. And when they send for Jesus, mysteriously he delays coming. And so by the time word gets to him, he delays and he comes back. The man is not only dead and buried, but 4 days dead and buried. And before Jesus does anything, it is not Mary who comes out to him. We might have expected that, reading Luke's Gospel. It is Martha. She leaves their guests in their home, who following Jewish custom have come to assist them in their mourning after burial. And she comes out and she challenges Jesus. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. But then she also speaks words of trust. But I know that even now, whatever you ask of God, he will give to you. And Jesus says, well, your brother will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. And Martha says, I know that he will rise again on the last day. And then Jesus gives her the most important of all the teachings in the whole of the New Testament. I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even though he or she dies, they will live. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this, Martha? And she says, yes, Lord, I believe. And she goes on, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who was to come. And implicitly in that is, I believe that whatever you want to do, you will do. And it's only after Jesus gives that teaching. And if you saw me looking at the windows while Stephen was getting ready to read the gospel, I was checking to see which window. And it's the third one here. Beautiful windows, these, the I am sayings of Jesus. I am the resurrection and the life. It's only after giving that teaching that Jesus then goes to the tomb of a man who's been dead and buried for 4 days. And even after his sister says, don't open the tomb, he's been dead 4 days, he calls him out, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out, wrapped with bands of stuff. And Jesus gave him back to his sisters. Lazarus died again. John's gospel suggests not too long after that. But the most important part of that account, it wasn't for Lazarus, striking as that was indeed for him and his sisters and the little town of Bethany. It was for all of us who would follow after Jesus. I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even though he or she dies, they shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die.